Started with two buddies who went to high school with myself. Um, and we were in, you know, already kind of in the scene a little bit. I was good buddies with Chris Wimber and the original Lifesavers group, which was Kershak and Chris Wimber. Had Ray Hersham play guitar a little bit. He also played an undercover. And then, Mike Knott later joined the original Lifesavers. Anyway, but myself and Brian Ray and Cass, um, actually, we had a bass player before Cass. We did one gig with him, and then we got Cass on the stand-up bass. But we were just surfers, and we liked punk rock music, and we liked rockabilly music. So it was just natural for us to play the kind of music that we liked.
Really?
Brian Ray, who was the drummer on the first record, who was, subsequently married to Crystal Lewis, grew up right around the corner from me. And he was 2 grades younger than me. So when I was in like 10th grade and he was in 8th grade, like I'd take him surfing. I had a Volkswagen bus and we'd go surfing, and we had a love of surfing and punk rock and rockabilly. Guitar and vocals. Brian Ray played the drums, and then Cass played the stand-up bass. And then on the second record, Brian had left, and a guy named Joe Mitchell, who was here a little bit ago, he played drums on the second Lifters record, and then Chris Harvey played guitar along with myself on the second record. He recently departed good buddy Mike Knott. He was kind of enamored by like rockabilly back then. They did a full rockabilly song that they turned on to a little 45 single, and like got to be 83 or something on, obviously, to do a lot in the music world, and sadly passed away about 7 months ago. Probably the title track, which kind of like the lyrics kind of just say like of a person who has faith, like we're really called to be of action and not of words. Like it's not about going to church on Sunday, and it's our faith is our life every day, and how we just good to the world and have humanity to the world. A girl named Marnie.
Okay.
And we kind of like toyed with her being more in the band. And then just kind of organically, she ended up doing something different with her. The guy who was our roadie, Paul, got together with her, and they kind of did their own thing called Daughter's Eve. And so we just kind of organically went different directions musically, but there was no hardship or bad feelings. I talked to them a lot as well. They're great, wonderful people. She's still doing music. Well, the Lifters, then, I'll try to make it short. I was hired to sing on like a musical record called High Tops. It was kind of like a Christian Grease or something. Or not, they said, we'll pay you $500 to do it. Did it. And when I was doing it, they said, you're actually going to do a duet. You're going to do a duet with this girl over here. And I'm like, oh, I know you. Like, I recognized a girl because she used to come to our shows. She was just like a little teeny bopper, really sing. So I'm like, hey, why don't you just come up and sing some songs at our next show? Because you always come to the shows. So she started singing, and then it become evident that like, well, she's a lot better singer than me, her being the lead singer. And then when Frontline wanted us to do another Lifters record, we all just kind of came to the realization that we weren't really the Lifters because she was singing. And that person obviously became Crystal Lewis. And we did Wild Blue Yonder. Myself, same drummer, Joe Mitchell, Crystal on vocals, and then my buddy Paul Martin, who was the roadie for the Lifters, became the bass player for Wild Blue Yonder. One,
okay.
Yep. And then Crystal she then got together with Brian, the original drummers of the Lifters. They became a couple, went on to get married, went on to create Metro One Music, and kind of launched her solo career. It was all organic and wonderful, and no bummed out. We're still super good friends with everybody. Crystal and Brian are godparents to my 26-year-old, so we're very friendly with everybody that we were all involved with 35 years ago. We did a record in 2000 called The Screaming Rays, which was a full jump jive record with horns and the whole thing. Really a great record. She's such a great vocalist, and we had wonderful production, and we toured around with that a little bit as well. We actually just did a reunion kind of show with Crystal. I did that about 6 months ago, because about 4 years ago, right during COVID, Crystal and myself and Joe and a couple other people went and recorded a 6-song EP of like 1954 authentic rockabilly. Definitely like a very organic movement that we were just all, it's just a collective thing. We were just buddies. We knew a lot of the people we were all going to the Vineyard, Chris Wimber's dad's church. You got a band and you open up for us and we'll open up for you. We'll be your roadie. We all just kind of moved in one big group. Right. So you do, looking back at it, there was definitely a movement that happened not by anything other than it just felt like, how would I say it? Like there was just a growing of people who were attracted to it all the time. We played, as many non-Christian venues as Christian venues. We played a lot in LA, and we played a whole bunch in Orange County. Time, Cuckoo's Nest, Madame Wong's, Cafe de Grand. We played all these, Coconut Teaser. We played all those places a lot. Yes, yeah. Like I said, I let them film at my office, and myself and Crystal and Mike Knott and Minnie Mendez from The Holidays all came and were filmed at my place. And I talked to them often and have helped gather, pictures and videos, and that I've been able to help furnish for the production of it. Well, obviously the Lifesavers was 1. Mm-hmm. Undercover was 2. The Altar Boys would be 3. Like, I knew Mike before he was in the Altar Boys, and he would come to our gigs because his brother Kevin was in the Lifesavers. So Mike is Kevin's older brother, like the Eagles or something at the time. Like, I thought, he kind of I didn't expect him to turn into kind of the leather jacket Altar Boys guy. I thought he was going to be like the Eagles music or something. I was obviously wrong. The choir now. Derry was the engineer on our second record. So I see Derry a lot. Steve Hindalong, love that guy, great musician. I did a tour with Mike Knott at LSU, maybe this 92 or 3 maybe, and we did, I think, a 15-day thing all through the Midwest, and I played guitar, and Steve was the drummer. I send Mike Rowe a bunch of crazy like Instagram stories of people jumping off high buildings and jumping into water because it freaks him out. So I just send him. I mean, he just worked at Calvary, right? So he was kind of in charge of booking the bands. And I didn't really know him that well. He was just kind of the guy who was our conduit whenever we played Calvary, which we played enough until finally one time they basically met. They had a meeting. They called us, Altar Boys, and Undercover, and Chuck came out and met with us on the lawn and said, "Hey, it's just getting too aggressive. We're going to just kind of, I don't want to use the word band, but we're just not going to have you guys play Calvary anymore." Why would you do that? Like, we'd like kind of, I don't know, It was a big thing back then because Calvary was kind of where the birth of this was, right? People were dancing, and I guess Chuck was like, "No thanks," and thought they were going to say they're going to give us extra money, or I didn't know what the meeting was for. So I was kind of like, what do you mean we're not going to play there anymore? Wow. It was strange. It was fine. We got lucky that I made them one time turn off all the lights. for a Wild Blue Yonder gig. And that was the first time they'd ever like had all the lights off. And then we just had one spotlight come down on the American flag. And our bass player played, the song "Off We Go" in the Wild Blue Yonder, dun, 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 and then boom, the band kicked and all the lights came on. So that was
That's
fun.
cool.
All pews and everybody sitting, and it's,
Right.
to me, we like more people standing and dancing and smashing into each other. Radio City and Anaheim was another place we played a lot, or the Doll Hut in Anaheim, played that a lot. We liked those venues. Probably they were more natural for us. So the
Right.
very first Harvest Crusade was in the parking lot of Calvary Chapel. Like they brought out like a flatbed trailer and set up
Yep.
everything, and there was a big lawn, which isn't a lawn anymore, and had a big crowd. And then Greg Laurie came out and did like the message. That was kind of the first harvest. It grew from that. That was an
Right.
April
That's
big
yeah.
outreach that Greg Laurie did with bands. Well, we didn't really like choose it, in a sense, natural reflection of who we were as people. Like we were people, we were young dudes who had faith, and our songs reflected what we were living, our lives, and what was important to us. And we, like I said, we played as many shows in like the non-Christian world with non-Christian bands as we did in the Christian world. It was just a reflection of who we were as people. There was also like in Orange County, if you remember then, not sure exactly how old you are, probably a couple of years younger than me. Um, like Orange County had a huge rockabilly punk ska scene, dang, and all the rockabilly. We played with all of those guys. So like I said, I was pursuing those kind of gigs more than probably the Christian kind of gigs, but we had a booking agent through Calvary and Maranatha who booked us in all these tours and all that stuff and kind of that world. But like we had a whole other world that was different than like Undercover and Lifesavers and Altar Boys. They didn't have that part of their thing where we played equally as much gigs that had nothing to do with the church and had nothing to do with any other church band. It was, remember, early 80s, like our music wasn't super accessible to like, we fit in perfect with, we go play with the Rockin' Rebels, which was a rockabilly band, and everybody looked the same and everybody's music sounded the same and everybody liked that because they knew what they were getting. What is happening? Like I don't get this music. Why do you have a big bass that he's slapping, and why are you screaming, and your hair's like I have an extremely robust life since that part of my life. I have a wife I love dearly. I have 5 kids. I have 3 grandkids. I get to coach my 9-year-old grandson in baseball, and like athletics take over our lives. My son just finished college football. My wife still plays tennis all the time. Like, so we're an active family, and I love music and I love all my musical friends, but I don't go to a bunch of gigs. I
Right.
don't listen to music as much as I used to. Um, but I definitely really look back on that part of my life as just the best of times, the best memories. I mean, I lived with, I lived with Mike. I lived with the guys from the Lifters, and I lived with Mike, and we lived with like 15 guys. That's actually how I got to produce, which I think is one of the greatest Christian records, is the first LSU album, Shaded Pain. I can only say, kind of in a broad thing, like I had a wonderful time with all my friends, and that period will forever just have this huge like hold of, I guess, my identity. And just I couldn't have thought of a better like coming of age way to live my life. A lot of people go to college and that's their coming of age, or away from their parents, and sometimes it maybe go a little
Mm.
haywire. Like our coming of age was like trying to be good people to the world and having our faith kind of be forward in our life. And probably that's why I'm still such good friends with all these people, because people who've had like similar coming of age experiences, like a deep thing inside of you that will never leave.